One. Hello, everyone. In this episode of Director Discussions, I'm fortunate enough to chat with the amazing Ben Brewer. He is the co-director. Him and his brother Alex directed a film called The Trust, which came out a few years back. He recently wrapped a film here in Ireland, and I mean, he didn't invite me to set. In fairness, he didn't know I existed because when I messaged him, the film had just finished, so he would have invited me to set. So I mean, c'est la vie, such is life. But called Sand and Stones, which I believe we get that soon. And he has a new Sundance film or a short film coming out, I believe, called The Folded Ocean. Is that true?
Yeah, good job. Wow.
What can I do? My research, Ben. I do my
Yeah.
research. You don't get to be this successful just sit lazing around. No, dude. So many different things to talk about. First things first. How you doing today?
I'm good. Great intro, man. You're incredible.
Dude, I try my best. Listen, I never use a sheet or anything like that. It's all off the top of my head. I get very methody. I lock myself in my room and I tell my parents, no, I'm practicing. I'm going through lines. I take my craft very seriously. I am a dedicated
Oh yeah.
artist. But no, dude, it's such a pleasure to chat with you. I mean, let me ask you this: what's it like? Nice? Is it nice being back in the Los Angeles weather as opposed to the Ireland cold and wintry, getting up at the crack of
No,
dawn?
I like the Irish weather. I loved it. I mean, it's funny. It's actually it's been pouring in LA, which is unusual, but it does happen in January. But no, Ireland, the first day we shot, it was just like the most insane rain, just pissing down
Yeah.
and what's different about the Irish rain is that it rains sideways. Like there's no like it's just wind and rain. But yeah, I loved it. I love the weather. It's weird. Like cuz it's I don't know,
In fairness, you shot in Wicklow, and Wicklow is like a beautiful place. Wicklow's like it's like a mix between. I mean, I don't go out to Wicklow much, but it's like kind of a mix between city and Dublin, and it's right on the precipice, but it's like countryside. So Wicklow's
yeah.
Wicklow's a really nice place to shoot on. But yeah, man, I mean, it rains a lot. Like I talked about this a little bit off. We were just shooting the shit about shooting in Ireland and all this. But David Lowery, when I talked about the Green Knight, told me that when he shot in Ireland, he came to Ireland because he wanted that mist and rain and weather, but it was sunny every day he came. So, at least. So, did the weather work for your shoot? Was that one of the things you kind of depended on, or what?
Yeah, we had a little of that where yeah, probably feeling very content with the idea of all overcast, all, moody, and then we got tons of sunshine. But it was very interesting because our schedule really didn't allow for anything to be amiss. And it was almost like God smiling on us because we'd go to shoot some scene and suddenly the sky would evolve to be what we needed it to be. And even it's like we'd shoot half of a scene one day and then a week later come back to shoot the next half. And we just lucked out. It would literally, whatever bizarre, you know, weather would suddenly replicate itself. We just got, somehow we were in the rhythm of the rapidly changing weather. Um, I also don't care. Like I will just shoot. I'll let it start raining in a scene. Like whatever, it's fine.
It's a creative
I
decision. The rain represents capitalism. Just go with it. All right, don't talk back to me. Take a puff of your cigarette. I mean, I assume that's all filmmaking is. You guys not get cigars on set. There's a picture of John Ford smoking a cigar with an eye patch, and it's ruined everything for me because now I think that's all filmmaking is. I think
Oh yeah,
they
he
give
was famous for that. Yeah.
yeah, so they give you an eye patch at the door, and you have to buy your own cigarettes or your own cigars. What's
Yeah, no, you got to be careful. Smoking is, I think, when you're making a film, if you smoke, you're done for because then that will start representing this moment of peace that you cherish and desire when you're in the middle of it and you don't know what the hell you're doing. So it's best, I think, that as a director, you should try to be a non-smoker
Oh my God,
because
thank you. That's funny. Some good advice. I always end my interviews with what advice would you have for upcoming directors? First time I've had someone say just lay off the smoke. So there you go, man. I appreciate it. That's good to know for the future. But the eye patch can stay. I don't have to
yeah, eye
compromise on
patch
that.
100%.
All right, that's good. That's gonna be my thing. The young Irish kid with an eye patch because that says so much. And then I'll just make really auteur-driven films, and then boom, I'll win an Academy Award. I have it all planned out. If I make a film, if I say it's about grief, they'll nominate me. So there
And
you
then
go. That's
and then at the Academy Awards, you can reveal the eye patch is just an affectation.
yeah. I'm like, hey, Hollywood Foreign Press, rip off the eye patch. There you
Yeah,
go. And then that's the
exactly.
big reveal. And then everyone claps, stands up, and then me and Colin Farrell become best friends again. And everyone's happy. And then the world goes back to being normal. I mean, no, dude, let me ask you, I mean, the trust. We'll talk about. I mean, we're here for an hour, so we can talk about plenty of things. But the trust, I mean, I love the trust. It's a fantastic film,
Oh,
and
thanks, man.
I mean, the first hour, it's kind of leading up to be a comedy, and
Yeah.
I sit there and I'm kind of thinking, like, normally I like to fancy myself a film genius. I'll watch a film and I mean, no, I won't smoke the cigars because I'm a changed man. Found I can't do that anymore. But I'll kind of I think we can all kind of predict where it's going to go. And I was watching this and I was like, I have a feeling how this is all going to end up being. And it was the inverse of it. It ended up being, I mean, like it got just totally black at the end and dark. And it's such a beautifully constructed story. I mean, like there's
Oh,
so much
thanks.
I want to talk to you about it. But I mean, you co-wrote The Trust, right? I mean, you sat down and you really helped work out the script. Is that true?
Yeah, so the initial draft of it I wrote with um a friend of mine named Adam Hirsch. And then after we finished that first draft together, I took it and went with my brother Alex, and then we kept writing it for a year. So
Was the ending always the same, or did that change a bit?
everything changed. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that first draft, I, there some things, maybe a couple things, I guess, cosmetically stayed, but we
Yeah.
changed. I mean, it completely evolved. It evolved through Nick getting on board, through Elijah getting on board. Like we just would write and change and write and change.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but that sense of the tonal shift for sure was part of the plan, part of the design.
Yeah, it was so good, man. Because I mean, I just it completely caught me by surprise, and it was so like emotionally heavy. And there's obviously a few points that I want to bring up that were like some of my favorite moments. Like I was watching it, and I rewatched it for this interview because I was like, I'm literally best friends with the director, so lay off. I'm not doing homework, so get that out of my face. All right. I need to talk about cigars with Ben Brewer, so come on, like priorities. You know what I'm saying? So this is no doubt the peak of both of our careers. It's all just going to go downhill from here. I mean, you have a new film with Nicolas Cage coming out, but I mean, listen, you're here, so this is more
Oh
important.
yeah.
But no, I mean, what I really love about, and I don't want to get too spoilery, that's the thing, but we start the film, and I mean, even like I heard this from Scott Frank, who wrote, Minority Report and A Walk Among the Tombstones, that his philosophy is like the first 10 minutes of a film, the first 5 minutes should be gripping. They should tell you everything about the character. And I think even in another Nicolas Cage film that, I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen The Lord of War, but in the
Yeah.
opening, he sits there, and funnily enough, he's smoking a cigar. I mean, there's a common theme throughout this video, but he says that amazing monologue, like there's 5,000 guns in circulation. That's one gun for every 12 people. How do we arm the other 11? And that just says everything about the character. And it's Scott
Yeah.
Frank's work as well. So that intro, and what I love is that you kind of paint Elijah Wood to be this rogue kind of cop who, he's not dirty, but he's just a bit like, he doesn't take it so seriously. And Nicolas Cage, on the other hand, his character is very like, he wears glasses and he has a mustache and he seems very clean cut. And by the end, that's almost reversed. There's almost an
Yeah.
inverse of that. Like they've gone through such a journey, and there's a really great moment where Nicolas Cage's character is buying a gun, and you shoot it through the back of a car, so you see the car went, and like his character just completely changes from there. I mean, talking about crafting
Yeah.
these characters, man, because I thought it was just amazing.
No, man, I really appreciate you picking up on that. So yeah,
I'm a cinephile genius. What can I say? I
you
have
are.
letterboxed. I have letterboxed, so I know everything.
um, but yeah, so I mean, Alex and I are huge believers of exactly that ethos, which is that audiences tend to put the most emphasis on the stuff you show them in the order you show it to them. So the first
Yeah,
thing you show, they give priority to in their mind. So when you introduce a character, your question should always be, what is the first and most important thing that you should know about this person?
yeah,
And I mean, this is not a you don't have to follow this rule perfectly, but that is the idea, is what, because this is what people are going to hold on to as being the most important thing. So
yeah,
Act One has a lot of that sort of stuff where it's like, it's the order of information that's actually very important. And in terms of the switch, there's a film we were very inspired by for this particular kind of character dynamic. It's
Really?
called The African Queen. Have you seen The African Queen?
No, what film's that year from? 60s or
It's
something?
from the maybe 50,
I think
1950, maybe
I've heard of
earlier.
it. I've heard of it. I've yet to see it though.
Hold on, I got it. Now I gotta look that up.
You're not gonna have me sit through a 4.5 hour Danish silent film from 1920, no? I haven't heard of it. I know I have heard of it, but I haven't seen it. Were you?
51. It's Humphrey Bogart and
Oh,
Katharine
right.
Hepburn,
Yeah, I've
and it was
heard of it.
directed by John Huston. But it's a film where they similarly, I mean, it's a masterpiece, but the dynamic of these two characters, your sort of Katharine Hepburn is like, kind of the more straight-laced, and and Humphrey Bogart is more this kind of cad, roguish. But then you realize that a character like Katharine Hepburn, when she puts her mind to something, she's dedicated to it. And so in the case of similarly, so in The Trust, like what you're really seeing is that Nick's character, when he's
Yeah.
trying to be a good focus on police work, he's really focused on that. When he's focused on this extracurricular thing, he's
Yeah.
really focused on that. So but yeah, that was our idea, was that you would, as the audience, you might underestimate what this guy's capable of, because he has this kind of nerdy exterior,
Yeah,
and
and I
that
think you subconsciously do, man, because we've seen these tropes in film so much before. It's like you kind of get a sense for what it's gonna be, and then I once that shot happens where he buys the gun, I could feel that like whatever I thought the ending was gonna be, I just knew it was gonna be different. And there's obviously that great hilarity to it. I mean, in the opening, and there's some really zany humor. Like one of my favorite shots from the film is when it's the opening. I'd say it's the first 10 minutes. Nicolas Cage is talking to his police chief, and the camera like that, and in the background you can see a criminal jump out the window, and he runs around to the car and he beats it, and it was like this amazing like type of slapstick comedy. So let me ask you this: what was it like, balancing, having that contrast between comedy and emotion and darker moments? Because at the end, it's like it's almost
yeah.
not a comedy. There's nothing funny about it, and there's this one moment. I'll just say it to you that like the two Bahama tickets that really got me. I was like, wow, man, like
Yeah.
there was something so profound about that. But I mean, Ash, what was that like balancing comedy? By the way, everyone watching this who hasn't seen The Trust does not know what we're talking about. But yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Let me
Good.
talk to like that.
Good
What was
checking
it
it out.
like balancing that comedy and kind of the
Well,
action?
I think, yeah, so it's a little bit like, if you're throwing a dinner party and you're cooking something, and they always, the rule they say about dinner parties is you're not supposed to cook something you haven't tried to make before. That's like the thing you shouldn't try to do. But making a film, you're always cooking something you've never cooked before and trying to
Yeah,
serve it to people. And so you say, well, look, people have eaten a lot of different types of food. How are we going to give them something surprising and satisfying? And so then you get this crazy idea to have like comedy that then tonally goes dark,
yeah,
and you have in your mind that you think that's going to work, and then you shoot the movie, and you come and you kind of navigate this tonal shift, and then it's really only after you've done the whole thing that you can make any assessment about whether or not the recipe worked. It's like, so
yeah,
yeah, I think that it's it was one of the biggest lessons of the movie for me as a filmmaker, was thinking about whether or not I even want to make any more movies that try to do that, because it
try to do
was
that shift.
a big tone, yeah, just kind of like a big tonal shift, like whether it's
Yeah,
worth risking losing people, or and maybe there's a thought of, like, I think that in my head, when I've like remade the movie or changed it, I've always kind of created more of a tone sandwich late, like in my after the fact version, where it's
yeah,
like, okay, I might go funnier, dark, 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 and then actually kind of add more of that humor back to kind of sandwich it together, instead of, because like, right, the film sort of cruises into the ending
yeah.
with something a little bit in between. But I would be tempted to actually expand in that zone and just give bring people back home to the more of the first tone of the first kind of tone of the film. So I don't know what your question was, but if you ask me about the shifting tones, I will just completely do what I just did.
You
And
just start crying. Just start crying, and people will watch out with sympathy. I mean, so no, dude, it's all right. I forget the questions I ask as well. I mean, I'm a pure waffler. But let me ask you this, man. When's the last time you've seen The Trust? Has it been like since the premiere? Have you just never watched this? Because I mean, I've talked
Yeah,
like
it's kind of like that.
because I
I
mean,
haven't.
I've never met a director who goes, "Oh yeah, I switch on me films all the time, and I love watching them, and I think they're great, and there's nothing I did wrong." It's every single time. Like it's like Francis Ford Coppola did a director's commentary for The Godfather, and he was pining over shots he didn't use and things he didn't do. And it's like if Francis Ford Coppola can't watch The Godfather and like it, there's no chance for the rest of us.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I mean, I will say this is I'm trying to think of if I don't think I have watched it like yeah, I haven't watched it since the premiere. I've seen stuff from it.
but do you not
And
remember it? Like no, could you remember the shots? I mean, would you not remember
oh
the
yeah,
whole?
I can walk through I think probably every but I mean maybe I'd be surprised that I might miss something, but Alex rewatched it like a couple days ago because we were talking to someone else about it, a class about it, and so he wanted to refresh his memory and he had the experience that honestly actually is the nice thing about when you look back. Everyone's always afraid to look back at their past work,
Yeah,
but then it's if you can actually do it, it's you're always pleasantly surprised, like
really.
generally. I mean, unless you're such an ego man, it's completely like,
Nine. It's
delusional.
not good enough. Nine. You're just snapping. Yeah,
But
man.
in general, when you look back at your old work, you are rewarded.
Yeah.
You're pleasantly surprised. And so, sure enough, like Alex, he texted me. He's like, "Yeah, I just rewatched it." I was like, "He's like, shit holds up, man." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, good." Like,
I mean,
so yeah, I'm not
I
afraid to
loved it,
watch
man.
it.
But it'd be interesting. Like I loved it, but obviously I wasn't the person who was making the decisions with the camera. So I mean, do you feel like you've learned a lot more since then? Like if you went back and shot it again, would you? I mean, that's an obvious question, but would it be different?
I think it. I mean, certain things possibly, but you know what I've learned about filmmaking is that, and maybe this is why people are so keep doing it till they're, you know, I mean, how old are some of these? Like Clint Eastwood's like in his 90s and
I
he's
mean,
still like
Dick
making movies.
Donner before he passed away, God rest his soul. He was an amazing filmmaker. But his philosophy was like, fucking just push me around in that chair and I'll shoot action. Like he was doing Lethal Weapon before he passed. And I mean, Hitchcock was the same way. I think like he did that till he died, and he was on a wheelchair and they pushed him around, man. So
I mean, I think the reason why that is because it's one of these art forms where you really every time you learn. Like
yeah,
you kind of never. I mean, yeah, you walk around with you get better at certain things, but there's
you never
just
crack it.
something about how many pieces, how many different elements are at play that it's like it's this experiment that you can never replicate in a weird way, and so you kind of just. And I think it also explains why, just because Francis Ford Coppola makes The Godfather, which is a perfect film,
Oh yeah, that's
but
fair.
but I mean, let's just say let's say like generally it's thought of as masterful. That didn't mean that every film he made after it was great, right? Like he made some shit. So
Yeah,
that's isn't that remarkable though? Like how is it possible that a filmmaker could make a masterpiece and then also make a bad movie? So I think that is what drives me, is that in a way I could change things about The Trust, but I also know that every movie is it's there's no saying whether or not it will be a reflection of getting better at this, because
yeah, and
that's just the crazy fun of making movies, is they
yeah.
can be terrible and you could have tried your hardest.
That's what a lovely, very optimistic thought. So, any aspiring filmmakers out there, remember that. But no, dude, and I love the final that because it was basically like it could have almost been like a stage play. Like you almost could have just shot it on theater because it was
For
like,
sure, yeah.
yeah, and it was so interesting to me seeing these characters almost evolve, and it was like there was something I can't think of many films that do so. I mean, I guess Reservoir Dogs. I guess you could say, yeah, you could probably say Reservoir Dogs, but where these characters like are literally devolving next to each other, and all of a sudden, Elijah Wood's character, his kindness ends up kind of paying the price for him. And you look back, if he could do it differently, maybe it would have ended in a better way if he kind of swallowed his pride and did what was maybe the wrong thing. So it's fascinating when you have these characters like this, because like I said, I spent the whole film thinking it was going to be the inverse. Like one was going to be the good guy, one was going to be, and I don't know what I thought, but the ending literally just completely caught me by surprise. And there's some great shots in that. Where did you shoot that white room with the diamonds in? I mean, was that
Oh, we
somewhere
built that. Yeah, we
you
built that
built
set.
that?
Yeah, that was a set.
That was very like 2001. It was very
Yeah,
Space Odyssey, man.
I remember. Yeah, that set. The idea was like it should just be completely like they walked onto an alien spaceship. Like it should be something that aesthetically has no other point in the film that is. I was like, I want it to feel like these characters are actually walking off the screen of the movie and they're just in like a void, like that they've somehow accidentally left their own movie for a second. Just to make it terrifying, make it scary, and feel like, oh,
Yeah.
this is something. I don't know what this is. This is like an
And dude, I
alien.
love the shot where you're looking down and Elijah Wood's character is sitting down and the bags are there and Nicolas Cage on one hand. You're looking down at it. That was a great shot. But yeah,
Oh, thank you.
dude,
Yeah.
I love that sequence, man. But no, I mean, when you're constructing a film like this, do you do, because this was your first feature, you and your brother, right? I mean, this
Yeah,
was your
yeah,
guys'
yeah.
first feature. Did you see the film in your head? Were you confident? What type of work? Because you guys did like music videos before that, right?
Yeah, so music videos teach you some things well and other things not as well. I think the thing that music videos gave us was a ability to really work hard. Like,
Yeah.
you shoot a music video in like a day, 2 days, and we were using music videos to make little short films and stuff. And so our ability to actually, you know, get it done was high up there. But the thing that they don't teach you is that in a music video, you're just constantly trying to invent the spectacle of it. Like you're trying to,
Yeah.
you think that you put so much emphasis on camera and art department, all that stuff, and what it doesn't prepare you for is that when you shoot a film with great actors, they're the spectacle, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't, you're so when in pre-production, like we would do all our we do like overhead charts of like where our cameras would go and all stuff. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that a director does in pre-production that is just pure self-soothing. Like
Just to be
it's just
safe.
yeah, it's a complete, it's like, it's how useful it is it's just useful in calming a director down who's terrified that they have to go shoot. When you're actually there, and you're looking at this real space and what the black everything changes. But the point is, when we were first doing those charts, we were thinking about how the camera would move, and we weren't thinking as much about how all we need to do is just find a good place to watch this performance.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest change, was getting on set and realizing that all this overachieving that you do in music videos with how the camera moves and all this stuff, you don't have to do any of that in a movie. You can just stick your camera on Nicolas Cage and have him not read of it, perform the scene,
Yeah.
and that's worth watching. And so, yeah, so we were very obsessed with blocking, though. We had this whole concept of how important it would be for the blocking to be, meaning where how the actors are moving through the scene, just that would be you can turn the sound off and kind of know what's going on thing, and certainly hopefully turn the sound off and know the dynamic of the scene and where it
Yeah.
started and where it ended. So we watched a lot of like Spielberg, actually, like
Oh yeah. Oh, he's great
Jaws.
at blocking.
He's got some good blocking in the old reel. So yeah, we watched some Jaws for blocking stuff, just like
Oh,
kind
for work, you sat through Jaws. How great of you. Very, very noble.
of
You took
that
the
is
time out of your busy schedule to watch Spielberg films, man. And
it is very funny that as part of this job, you do like, you're like, I gotta watch these movies. Like it's
it's for
very
work. You don't understand. I'm an auteur. All right, this is what I have to do. They're showing Paul Thomas Anderson's "There Will Be Blood" on the cinema, and I have to watch it for work. Don't ask me questions. Just let me get in my zone. And then you're
I
like Daniel
remember
Day
hearing a
Lewis with a
story.
mustache. So
By the way, back to the thing I was saying earlier, I remember hearing a story about There Will Be Blood. So when that movie came out, I was in college, and I remember just going to see it maybe 3 or 4 times, which I never really do that, but it was such a
Yeah, it's hard for me to watch a film unless there's a few years between it, maybe.
but that year in particular was 2007. It was the year that No Country for Old Men came out, and Assassination of Jesse James, and then
Yes.
crazy year of these like incredible movies.
What year was
But
that?
it was 2007, I want to
Year I was
say.
born. Spider-Man 3 came out as well, so that's all right.
Well, Spider-Man 3 is great. I think that's
But
the best
oh, I
Spider-Man.
love it as well. It's my guilty pleasure. And at the same time, it's like at the same time, I'm practically a kid. So if anyone gets lippy with me, then it's like you're stomping on my dreams. So fuck you. You can't do that. But no, I looked up what was the highest grossing film when I was born, and Spider-Man 3 was. So I didn't realize
Oh
There
yeah.
Will Be Blood came out when I was born. And me and Daniel
So
Day-Lewis share a name. So keep going anyway.
yeah, but I was gonna say, I just remember reading a story in an interview where, and this could be apocryphal, but that uh, Paul Thomas Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis both had not made a movie in like 8 years or something, or like 7 years, and so there was apparently a week of shooting that they just threw out because it was like bad. Like Daniel Day-Lewis was bad, Paul Thomas Anderson was bad, so. Just back to the idea that you can, Daniel Day-Lewis, who was like, so My Left Foot, etc. Paul Thomas Anderson,
Yeah.
Boogie Nights, etc. And they can still show up and screw it up.
Have you seen My
Um,
Left Foot?
yeah,
Dude, that's amazing. You're practically Irish. You're in it now.
I yeah,
That's all it
I
takes.
well, I watched it also before going to Ireland too. So but
What
that
films did you
performance,
watch
like
before coming to Ireland? Did you watch The Crying Man? Or what was it? Is that the film? No, The Crying
crying,
Game. What's the one
crying
with John
game.
Wayne where he has the cat?
Oh,
John
where he
Wayne.
does the Irish accent.
Yeah, he's a boxer and he killed someone and he comes to Ireland. Yeah, I forget the film. Oh my God, people are gonna rip into me for this. But also I'm a kid, so you can't say anything. So yeah, but
I do watch a bunch of Jim Sheridan films, like
I
The
almost met Jim
Process.
Sheridan. I was at the premiere for Banshees of Inisherin. I somehow
Oh
waffled
no
my way
way,
onto it,
cool.
and I got to interview Colin Farrell, Martin McDonagh, Brendan Gleeson. I couldn't eat 2 days beforehand. I was so nervous. But apparently afterwards, I found out Jim Sheridan and Neil Jordan were there, and like Bono was there as well, and all these celebrities. But the fact that I could have met Jim Sheridan and Neil Jordan was another kill
Oh
myself
yeah,
moment.
the
So
Irish goats, the Irish.
yeah, there's a
And
nice list of Irish filmmakers, which kind of sucks ass because even if I become a filmmaker, it's like I can't even be the best Irish filmmaker. Like, damn, like that's just so.
no.
Why? I mean, we are a land of artists, which is great, but also, for selfish reasons, inconvenient to me because I'm the only one that matters in this world. But let me ask you. I mean, we're just talking about films. Have you seen Banshees of Inisherin?
Yeah, I loved it. I
Oh
love his
yeah.
stuff.
Have you seen it in Bruges?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, in Bruges is one of my
I've been
favorite
to
films.
Bruges after seeing In Bruges. I
I
love
want to go to
the
Bruges. I'm
movie
trying to
and the
get my
play.
school to bring me on a holiday because we're going on a holiday with my school next year. I'm trying to get them to bring us to Bruges.
I've seen his plays too. I saw one called The Beauty Queen of Lebanon,
Yeah.
uh, and great. And then I saw he did another one called The Hangman, which is a newer one that was really good. I saw that in London, but I love his stuff. I think it's great. He has a film called Seven Psychopaths that's so great and so underrated, and no one talks about it. I love that movie.
It's so fun. I got my friend to watch it because I needed someone to talk about it. I was sent it like, Max, please just watch it so I can talk to you about it. Because I quote some of it. Some of it I can't say on camera, but it's so funny. Sam Rockwell in his dog hat. And he's like, and he has the flare gun. It's just so fucking funny, man.
Yeah,
I
and I
really
think I heard a story that actually a friend of mine who's a director saw Martin McDonagh and was like, "Oh, I love Seven Psychopaths," and he told me that you could tell Martin McDonagh like he's walking around thinking no one liked that movie, basically, like because it like I think it didn't do because Hollywood's weird. Like if something doesn't do business or there's all these like stupid things that plant insecurity in a filmmaker's mind that no one liked the film, whatever, you know. And it's funny, the trust is like that too. Like I'm always like completely astounded. Like you're astounding to me that you've like watched it, you liked it, you want to talk about it. Like it, unless you have like some runaway hit, you just walk around thinking you messed up. And so yeah, I'm always like you know, happy to find out that there's people out there who are like, you know, because
Yeah,
I want to do that. If I ever see a filmmaker, I'll be like, that movie that made no money, like, or whatever, like that's amazing. Don't let anyone tell you differently, you know?
dude, I need to interview Martin McDonagh. I got to chat him for 2 minutes, and like it wasn't enough because I literally like I met up and I managed to actually speak, which was something. But I love chatting. And when I finished the film, we were coming out of the cinema, and we bumped into him and the producer Graham Broadbent on the way, and we just started talking. And he was like, it was just to kill me, mom. But Martin McDonagh, he's such a great filmmaker,
Oh,
and
cool.
you know
Yeah.
his brother's a director as well. I don't know
Yeah, yeah,
if you've
yeah.
seen The Guard. He's also done.
I love The Guard. Yeah.
Oh, The Guard's such a funny film. I mean, that's one of Irish's like classic, and that's another annoying thing because I'll never make the best film made in Ireland either. Sand and Stones as well. So thanks for that, Ben. Thanks for that, Ben. You're putting me on a great list. So
Well,
maybe
talk
I'll.
about like The Guard, talk about that idea that like the first thing you see is so indelible because the first shot of that movie is Brendan Gleeson coming across a
A car crash.
horrible car accident and then he just drops acid. It's like the most.
Oh my god! And like, yeah, I love films like that where the characters aren't necessarily, I mean, he's like they're interesting characters. Like Nicolas Cage, I'd argue, is kind of he's a morally great character. Like towards the end, I don't want to touch. I don't really want to spoil it, but he gets, he's almost tearing up, when he gets shot in the neck. He's almost in tears,
Yeah.
and I think the last words he says is this true. I think he says, I'm sorry, David," because he's just talking about like, "Oh, David, I just want to say I'm sorry," and his last words were literally, "I'm sorry," which was like a really
Yeah.
great moment. So yeah, fuck you for killing Nicolas Cage, man. Like, what the hell? Like, what's
Well,
that
yeah,
about?
it's funny because I mean, I do think there's a bit of this idea in movies where if your characters kill an innocent person,
That's the line.
yeah, exactly. And then you're kind of, as an audience, you're feeling that the only satisfactory place on the go is to be pay for that, right? So if you feel that these characters you're following have killed an innocent person and they don't pay for it, there's just something that sticks in you. It's like having a popcorn kernel in your teeth. You're just like, yeah, you didn't quite figure it out. So there's this
Yeah.
whole, I mean, a lot of this whole kind of crime doesn't pay thing. It's amazing how consistent it is in our stories and how much we want that theme to be
Yeah, I
reinforced,
think
you
we
know?
need it, maybe.
Yeah. But it is an interesting thing to consider, just examine whether or not it's a matter of the world we want to live in, or it's a matter of is that the world we live in, and if it's not reflected, we think that they did a bad job of capturing human behavior, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think Nick and Elijah's character, to me, they're kind of these, you know, sort of masculine portraits of. I think the world is run by people like Nick's character, and it is,
Who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty, kind of.
yeah, they're the you know, sociopathically ambitious people who are saying and understand that in order to truly reach the top, you gotta break some eggs. And then the Elijah characters are these more emotional, cynical, you know, but push comes to shove, they don't have it in them to really be great because what it takes is heinous.
And he pays for
Um,
that. That's his downfall. He kind of and that's my favorite thing in cinema when someone pays for their kindness. And like
yeah, yeah,
I was so annoyed, when it got like like it's a great storytelling this thing because it made me feel that way towards him because it was like, once he did that with and there's this scene where he has the diamonds and he looks down and you just start like crying and like that was
yeah.
such a heavy and that was when I felt like that's when I was like, oh shit, well now I'm in the mud with these characters and it's like I can't see a way out. So I'm stuck with these lads for the next 15 minutes to see how this all plays out, and it's not looking well. So it was great,
It's
man.
funny that him crying, I took that straight from this Gus Van Sant film called Jerry, which if you haven't seen that, it's
Yes,
the
it's
whole,
that. It's that one where Matt Damon and Casey Stewart just walk around the desert.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's awesome.
It's
It's
so good.
great.
I
Um,
love Gus Van Sant. He's so good.
yeah, that was a film that we watched because it's just this. Yeah, he's brilliant, and
That's his
his
most underrated film, I'd say. Funny enough, Jerry. Now that you mention it,
yeah, 100%. And I actually got to. Well, no, I don't. I met him once and like hung out with him a bit, and it
You
was
hung
crazy.
out. You went up to him with a beer and was like, "Hey, Gus San, how are you?" We're basic. You put your hand around. We're basically co-workers.
It was like, yeah, it was very. I was very nervous. This is years ago, um, and I don't think I ended up having the nerve to tell him how much I like Jerry, but our producer, who's friends with him, was like, "Oh yeah, Ben keeps talking about Jerry while we're making this movie," and it was reported back that he was very flattered by that. But yeah, that was a big movie for us to watch just because of it. I think it's one of the best depictions of masculinity in a movie.
That's an
Uh,
interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
um, I mean, it's literally men who can't ask for directions. Like that's the
Oh well, yeah. Now
a
that yeah,
horror film about
just making me
that.
feel stupid. Okay, Ben. Yeah, I see how it is. Fine. So yeah, I knew that as well. I bet you didn't realize the film was there's some grief overlay. I mean, there isn't, but if I say there is, it's like it's the death of the author theory. If I say something to a director and I say I interpreted your film as this, and they say no, and I say yes, I'm right because once they put their work out there, I own it. Which is
Yeah, of course.
that's my so basically I own your work. And if I say Nicolas Cage survived the bullet shots, and then he does survive. So yeah,
Yeah,
up yours,
I
he
think,
survives.
and I think, by the way, I think there's like, yeah, it's never helpful for a director to explain something that's in the movie. Like, it's like, okay, you know, um,
So this shot
but
signifies the relationship between human and nature, and how we're all gonna die one day.
well, you just have to hope that somebody's gonna. My, I guess here's the big lesson for me as a filmmaker that is different than with the trust. Not totally different, but maybe it'll save a director time trying to cut something together and try to make it work, which is that I don't believe in ever having two shots that remotely mean the same thing in a movie.
Really?
Yeah, I think that every shot should be its own idea, and that the second you cut to something that is sort of similar, it doesn't, or I think you lose subconsciously, you lose a sense that the director's someone worth trusting.
Yeah.
So like I will throw out like a really beautiful shot because I have some other shot that means close enough to the same thing, and I can't have it be, I can't say the same thing twice. That becomes muddled. But that said, I think that the meaning of what the film's trying to say, I think when you allow every shot to be this, just discrete unit of ideas, and there's no question that we're not being just thrown coverage. I think that some of these deeper things are more possible because you are kind of pushing people towards more of a meditative state when they're watching things. So I'm sounding like a crazy person right now, but
No, not at all.
there's a movie that came out this year, I love, called After Sun.
Oh, by
And
Charlotte Wells. It's
have
so
you
good.
seen it?
So good.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. I was blown away by. I just thought it was. I mean, I think the director, her talent is like. I think she's like on a Kurosawa level,
And that's
if
a
I'm not
first
mistaken,
feature.
it's her first feature film.
Yeah, making
Yeah,
the rest of us look bad.
I mean, but if you just look at that film, where it's all subtext, it's all reading into the images. None of it is. It's not advertising anything, right?
There's a
Incredibly difficult.
handheldness as well, which is something that's in the trust as well. The handheld. So was the trust all shot handheld?
There's definitely a fair bit. This
I know.
new one I did is all handheld. I love handheld. I can't help it. It's just like my biggest filmmaking hero is Lars von Trier, and so most of what I do is just trying to basically do pale imitations of his,
That's fair.
his storytelling style. But yeah, that After Sun, every shot of it is its own discrete concept, and
Yeah.
it expertly allows you to sit in those shots until the meaning arrives, and then the meaning deepens as the next shot comes, because then you're adding together things. I just think it's like that's, to me, the place where cinema can actually have where the director's intention can actually come through, even if it is a bit abstract. Whereas there's plenty of other places like interpreting like Nick isn't dead. You can choose to do that, and that's like fun. But
Well, I mean, is it fair though? I mean, he checks his pulse, but maybe zombie resurrection or something.
well, if there was a shot that was clearly meant to try to give you that idea, then suddenly you're in firmer ground to then extrapolate around it what the bigger idea is there. Um but yeah, that's why I think movies are actually worth getting into the weeds on, because a lot it's support, like you can find support for what you saw in
Yeah.
the you can find support for your interpretation in what you saw. But you have to make a good case.
Yeah, it's like someone said to Kevin Smith, "Oh yeah, I watched Clerks, and what I love about Clerks was that you shot it in black and white to represent like a security guard camera." And Kevin Smith just couldn't afford color on his camera,
Yeah,
but he
of
was like,
course.
"Yes, that is exactly my creative decision." So that's I love asking that question to directors. Like, has anyone ever just come up to you and said, "This is what I interpreted from the film," and you were like, "Yeah, yeah, that's
Oh, just
100%
went
it."
along with it.
Yeah.
um
That's what I'd do, by the way. I'd be a talentless hack. I absolutely would not sit there and say, no, no, no. I'd say, yes. I'd say, yes, give me an Academy Award, please. That's what I'd say.
no, I will. I think the other important uh tool in a director's toolbox tool case, um is to have such a sense of security that you are unafraid to be dumb, a hack, not have good ideas,
Like,
be
take
like,
those risks, you know?
yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, like when you're working with actors are some of the most brilliant people, artists on earth. They are tasked with trying to understand human behavior in a way that a director isn't. Directors, kind of could be kind of a megalomaniac who's just singly focused on this vision, right? It's
Like
completely
when,
internal.
yeah, like
But
Kubrick
actors
used to
out
say
there,
to actors, just do it better. And he wouldn't say anything else and he'd just start shooting. Like, that was
who
Kubrick's
does
approach.
that?
Kubrick used to shoot a film and he put the camera down and said, okay, this time do it better. And he put the camera back up and just keep shooting. So,
Yeah, I mean, I would interpret that as like completely awful. Like I
yeah,
think
but what
that
has Kubrick ever done, to be honest?
I mean, it's true, but also you start to sort of think about, well, how much time did you have? How much did you reshoot things? Like, and there is some sense in that you can't necessarily shape what someone's doing that much, but I do think that there's a language of acting, and I think that directors should know that language, and that
Yeah.
they should also recognize that actors come to set having done a ton of work that they don't tell you about. And so you got to respect that work. And for me, the way I respect it most is that am I'm very unafraid to look like the dumbest person who's trying to make this movie happen. Like
Yeah.
I let actors fill in gaps with better stuff that I'm not as shrewd in. So but I think that it's hard on your ego. So same thing with like someone coming up to you having made some connection to your movie that you didn't intend. I think it's kind of your responsibility to be secure in yourself enough to be like, oh yeah, I never thought of that, but that's interesting. Um, I have a policy of just that honesty is always going to be this like
Yeah.
nourishing thing.
That's amazing, man. I dude, it must be such an interesting set with you on it. That'd be so interesting. But something, I mean, there's about 20 minutes left, so if a couple of things I'd love to ask you before we wrap up. Let me ask you this. I mean, is it true? Did you do some of the VFX on Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yeah.
You're a man.
I was
You're a
one of
man
the
of many
lead.
talents, man.
Well, I gotta say that's another bit of I recommend that for sure. Just learning how to do stuff like that, because not only can you apply it to your own work, um, visual effects, if you understand how they're done, not only can you incorporate that into your projects, but then suddenly you have skill that people want to hire you to do, you know. And so Everything Everywhere All at Once was, I've been friends with the Daniels since college, and we all directed music videos at the same time. And
Did both of the Daniels know each other in college?
yeah, so we all went to the same college, and I knew Dan Kwan. I was friends with. I transferred to the school, and he was like one of the first people I kind of met, and we were friends and met in a class. And then Dan, I didn't know Daniel Shiner, but they met in an animation class, and then started making kind of crazy cool stuff. And kind of out of the gate, were making stuff that was getting a lot like attention, and you know, their careers really kind of were like very. This is like 2011.
The
And so
overnight
yeah,
success that took 10 years, as they say.
yeah, exactly. Um, and they uh, and they were doing visual effects in their stuff, and it was elevating it and making it really clever. And so I worked with them on a project. They asked if anyone wanted to help them edit something, and I just kind of quickly. I was in Boston, and that's where they were editing, and so I said, "Yeah, I'll do it."
And
And
were
they
they
kind
just
of,
saying, so there's going to be sausage fingers and these two rocks and these rocks talk to each other? And you were like, that's great. That's great. How
yeah.
nice to meet
No,
you.
this was 10, 12. This is 2011, and they showed me what they were doing in After Effects with their visual effects, and it impressed me, and so it just put me on that. It put me on that sense that like, oh, that's something we should learn to do. But Eric, cut ahead. The Everything Everywhere, they had done their first movie, Swiss Army Man. They'd worked with like a
Yeah.
more traditional VFX house, and I think they knew on this one that the budget was small enough, and they had like, I mean, it's like 400 something visual effects shots, or like 500. It's a tremendous amount. And so they hit up basically, uh, it was the core group was myself, Zach Stoltz, this guy Ethan Felbel, and then this guy Jeff Deciman. We're all directors. Ethan was a production designer, kind of more
Yeah.
by trade, but essentially it was all directors who did their own visual effects, music videos, stuff like that. And so yeah, so that was the plan, was to basically have a tiny team of, but people who you could kind of creatively trust, that weren't just gonna, you know. And so yeah, we had a ton of creative freedom in the end.
Yeah.
All the shots I did were, uh, you know, I was just, I think I benefit from knowing those guys so long, because I could put things together. I was like, I think they'll like this, and
Was
then
there a frame in the film? Sorry to interrupt. Was there a frame in the film that showed the VFX team?
yeah.
Are
So
you in
there's
the
this.
film?
Yeah, I'm like in the lower corner of that little
Oh
that
my God. So
that
you're an
single
actor. You
panel.
have an acting credit.
I should hit up SAG. I mean, that's the funny. So the funniest thing is, I'm working on this one shot where the Jobu character she's holding the sword, and it's like changing and all this different stuff. And that shot was like a ton of work, but
Yeah.
I'm just trying to come up with all these different long things that it could transform into. Um, and
The
at one point,
life of a filmmaker, anyway. What could this
yeah,
sword transform into? Wow. Enticing.
it's true. So I'm like, oh, okay, like it's a lamp, it's a this, and I'm running out like baseball bat, very much have ideas, but then you know, the movie's so absurd that I put in a Oscar for like 2 frames. And I thought, well, I find that funny to like be like, oh, this like crazy movie's like an Oscar movie. And
You might be, I mean, dude, knock on wood. Are you a fortune teller? What is it?
well, it's crazy. So then the movie comes out, it's not even streamable.
Yeah.
And people are seeing it so much that somebody on Twitter is like, there's a moment where Jobu's holding an Oscar, like this has to happen, you know. And I thought, like, if this movie is being seen to the degree that people saw that I put in there, this movie's 100% gonna like get nominated for an award there. And sure enough, like it's obviously been this like, you know, it's won Golden Globes now and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty funny. I thought it was just be like a funny joke, because I
So,
just thought the
dude, so if
movie was.
anything, you're the GOAT. That's what we should take away from that. You predicted this. You knew it was coming, and it all goes to you, not the cast, the creator. It all went to that one moment.
Well, I guess it also just goes to show that even if you're working on something that feels really outsider, that doesn't necessarily mean that it won't find its way into the culture at large, you know. I just assumed that the movie was weird enough that it would be outside of that conversation, but I was completely wrong. Like
Yeah, if I think a film will always find its audience if it's good, and this is that interesting. Mike Flanagan talking about like we talked about horror films, but I kind of maintain that no matter what film, if it's really good, it'll find its audience. You know. So
yeah.
yeah, that's fascinating. But no, and I mean, I love the Daniels. They're such talented directors, and we share a name, so obviously that's where it comes from. Like I reached out to Daniel Scheinert to do an interview. And he was so nice. He got back to me. He was so busy, but he let me know that maybe I could reach out in the future. And then at the end, he said, also, congratulations on having such a great name. So there you go. So there you go. So that
let
just shows
me
Daniel. Daniel's an amazing name.
let me know if you want me to nudge them. I can. I'll shoot them a text and be like, hey,
Dude,
get
go
back
to
to
Daniel
Danny.
Kwan. Go to Daniel Kwan. I interviewed this boy. He's so charming and funny, and he has lots of friends. And tell him we're best friends, and see if he'll put me on a press list. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
man.
I'll hit him hard. Yeah, you should
Go
definitely.
to his house, put his windows in. No, okay. Dude. But let me ask you this: there's about 10 minutes, so let me talk to you just about some of your favorite films. I mean, we talked Paul Thomas Anderson. Are you a fan of PT? I mean, let's just get weird because I mean, let's just talk. I'm enjoying this chat so much. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on filmmakers like PTA. Are you a fan?
Yeah, I liked. I think the films of his that I think are just unbelievable are
Magnolia is like the most beautiful film I've ever seen, and I really feel that way.
Magnolia. Magnolia is insane. I'm actually a bigger fan of the behind the scenes documentary of Magnolia than Magnolia
I
itself.
watched it as well because I'm so obsessed with Magnolia. I cannot believe it was made, and it was like one of those things. Like there's some films you wish you could just forget so you could watch them again. And it was just this. Like I went into Magnolia, and for some reason I had this visual image in my head of Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz riding a bicycle. And I think because they're in another film together called Night and Day, I think. So
Oh yeah, I love that movie.
for some reason, I thought that Magnolia was going to be an action film because I was watching all PTA's films recently. I started with Punch Drunk Love, which is amazing. It's an hour and 30, and then I moved on to Magnolia, and Magnolia was just the most like it's just a really beautiful film, and I'll still watch clips of it like every week. I'm really obsessed with that right now. Maybe it'll fade in the
What?
next month, but I'm horribly obsessed with it. But yeah, dude. So
Have you
what?
watched the making of thing on YouTube?
Yeah, I did, and it's so funny, and I like seeing PTA work with Philip Senior Hoffman, and it's so funny, and that's PTA. Like PTA was like, oh my god, he was like 27 when he was doing this.
Yeah,
Like I
he
think,
started super young. And yeah, I think yeah, no, it's a crazy movie. It's funny, Night and Day as a movie I freaking love.
yeah,
Like
is
it
that your
really
guilty
makes my.
pleasure? My guilty pleasure is Mamma Mia. I don't tell my friends, but fucking
Oh,
love
I
it.
love Mamma Mia too. Yeah, it's funny. I love Mamma Mia and Mamma Mia too, but it's funny. Mamma Mia and Night and Day are two movies that you've managed to name two movies that I will speak at length about why I think those are some of the best films I've ever seen.
I saw Mamma Mia 2 in cinemas, and I'll never tell my friends, and I'll never do any of it. But I fucking love Mamma Mia. It's so good.
Well, I don't, there is a quality of any movie that I respond to, which is when it is unabashedly doing what it's there to do. And that's Mamma Mia. There is absolutely not a shred of self-consciousness. It
Yeah.
is replete in its Mamma Mia-ness. And I think
Are you a
that's
film
always going to
critic?
be,
This is so
huh?
beautiful. Are you a film critic?
I should be.
It's complete in its Mamma Mia-ness. But no,
But
dude, I
also
get what
like
you're
Night
saying.
and Day, like that's James Mangold. He, I
He's
think,
so
is
good.
an extremely gifted visual storyteller. I think it's Tom Cruise's one of his best performances. Him and Cameron Diaz have incredible chemistry. It's like Romancing the Stone, but and it's funny. You're the only person I've ever met who's seen Night and Day. Like
Yeah,
you, my
really.
brother, the three of us, we're the people who know and dig Night and
So
Day.
am I an honorary brewer? Is that all it takes?
Yeah, you're now part of the Brewer clan.
Yes.
But
All right. I'm
yeah, Paul
honored.
Thomas Anderson, I loved There Will Be Blood, and then but the ones that I think are really, really his best are the Master and Phantom Thread. I thought Phantom Thread was just
The Master's so good. I have
outstanding.
3 PTA films left to watch. I started Inherent Vice the other day. I didn't get to finish it. Inherent Vice, Phantom Thread, and his first film, Hard Eights. I haven't
Oh
seen.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Those
That
are the
one.
only three. I went through a Paul Thomas Anderson bin. I've seen everything else. Boogie Nights, There Will Be Blood, the whole shebang. But it's just Inherent Vice, Phantom Thread. I've heard great things about Phantom Thread and what the obviously Hard Eights. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Well, I think he's another example where like so the Masters was I thought was incredible.
Yeah,
And then his next movie was Inherent Vice, and I thought it like didn't work at all.
really.
Which is funny because I remember reading the book, and the book's quite funny, and I thought, oh, how will this work? And I didn't think it did work at all. And then he did Phantom Thread, which I again thought was just it just knocked me over. I couldn't I love that movie. And then the movie he made this year, I was like, I don't think this movie was
That's
Licorice Pizza or
interesting.
whatever.
I
I
mean,
was like ready to turn that thing off,
that's a
So,
fun
but
licorice pizza, wasn't it?
yeah.
I did. I love PTA to best. I love PTA to that, and I think you can see the Robert Altman in his work.
Oh
So
yeah. Well, he's one that I was, and by the way, another one of these careers where he just kept working and I think he must have been Sidney Lumet too comes to mind. These kind of humble filmmakers who they just do their job and if you look at I mean Robert Altman, every era he made great movies
yeah,
among other movies that didn't work, right? So like if you want to talk about just Nashville, fine, or if you want to talk about The Long Goodbye or some of these
such a
kind of
great film. The Long Goodbye.
classic Altman movies, but then you have the Pret-a-Porter or whatever, the ready to wear. He was like in the 80s who did like a great or early 90s who did this amazing one about Paris Fashion Week.
I've that's news to me. He did.
Yeah, I mean he's got so many hidden gems throughout. And then in the early 2000s he did Gosford Park, which is one of his absolute best movies. And he
Once I
made that.
finish, once I finish all my PTA films, I'm going on to Altman because I cannot wait to watch some of his work. The only one I've seen so far is The Long Goodbye. I need to watch the rest. I'm desperate to watch the rest.
Oh yeah, it's a treat because of exactly the fact that he just followed his creative instinct and he didn't care if one of them worked and one of them didn't. He was just always moving forward. And I think that as an artist, he stayed very relevant because he wasn't afraid to mess up. I mean, like even like someone like Paul Schrader like openly admits that he like his decades are defined by like a couple like masterpieces and then like shit in the middle, and like I think that like that being aware of that part of filmmaking that like you cannot control how the meal turns out.
Yeah,
um
just hope it's good.
yeah, I meet people who are like they like Paul Thomas Anderson is a great example where it's like I don't know, he's this kind of he occupies this like space where it's like nobody wants to say boo about, it's like they all have to be these perfect movies, but it's like that's not the point of filmmaking. Like the point is to just, figure out what moved you and figure out what didn't and
Yeah.
keep moving forward,
It's like oh, by the way, Sidney Lumet, fantastic. I got his book for Christmas because for Christmas I got a bunch of
Yeah.
filmmaking books. So I got the Kurosawa book, I got the Lumet book, and yeah, so I can't wait to read that. But I mean, a couple of the last things I'd love to bring up. I mean, you brought up some great names there, but you look at all these films from all these different directors, and I agree with that point that yeah, films. You just kind of have to have that quality of sometimes you just have to make the film you want to make, for warts and all, for good or for bad. You have to maintain that creative, integrity. And I mean, you look at your career, what are some of your dream projects? What are some, you look, what's kind of next for you? I mean, Standing Stones, I don't
Yeah.
even know what genre or what type of story. I'm sure we'll see you soon. But what are some of your dreams to shoot and make?
Yeah, well, first of all, I should put the caveat there is one filmmaker that never made a bad movie, and that's Kurosawa. Like
Oh
his
yeah?
he's absolutely the greatest filmmaker of all time, without
Oh yeah? Is he on your
fearlessly so. Yeah. There's like no one I would put above Kurosawa. But yeah, in terms of my own movie stuff I want to do. I loved working with Nick. I've worked with him twice now.
Oh, he's so good, man. I think he's truly just a phenomenal actor. Like,
And he's just a great guy too. Like I
and
just, as a
yeah,
person, I enjoy him.
and he
Um,
becomes almost terrifying in the second half of The Trust. And I've heard, I'm good friends with the director Mark Steven Johnson, who directed Ghost Rider. And
mhm.
when he came to Dublin, I got chat with Mark, and we were just talking about Nick Cage. He is he's one of those actors who is like, he's done all these great projects, and yet in his interviews, he still seems so just humble. He's amazing, man. But yeah,
Yeah, and he does great work. He likes to work. So for me, I have another film that I was in the process of getting ready to make before Sand and Stones showed up, and they asked me to do Sand and Stones. So there's other things, something I wrote. Um, I think I am kind of interested in. I'm not particularly genre oriented.
how
I'm
about
interested.
how about you
Yeah.
spend €5 million and come back to Dublin and just reshoot the whole thing? Wouldn't that be so, like, for a creative decision? Like, just drop a couple mil. I assume you're rich. Is it that director money? Just come on, come on.
No, directors don't have any money.
Just
Too
melt down
good
the gold
producers
from the
for
Academy Awards you're gonna win for Everything Everywhere all at once.
that.
Turn the gold into euro. Come to Dublin, all just so I can come to set, and that way everyone's happy. And we all win.
I'm for it, man. I would do anything to shoot in Ireland again. But I also don't think, like, I'm not really interested in making movies. Like, I love, my favorite way to make movies is to just shoot on my own camera, and
Yeah,
like this short film I have in Sundance, it was just me and my girlfriend and my brother, and I filmed it myself, and these two great actors, and it literally cost $0. We just were in a house shooting, and I did all the visual effects afterwards. Like, that's how I like to work. I
that's
would do
guerrilla
that.
filmmaking. That's guerrilla style filmmaking.
Oh, it's you don't technology now is so incredible. If you kind of know your way around color correction and editing and visual effects, you can make something look totally great with a very affordable camera. The only person I'd add into this small crew is I'd bring the cinematographer from Sand and Stones is my good friend Frank Mobilio, and he is so much better than me, and so I would fold him in. But generally, like, I would make movies like that. Like, I love doing that.
Amazing.
I don't really
So,
care for the big circus.
wait, so there's not going to be any frogs falling from the sky in a folded ocean? That's what makes a good film.
There's some crazy. I'll send you the link. It's a pretty gross, crazy little film, but
I'd love to see it, man. It sounds amazing. I mean, tell everyone about that before I let you go. I'm so sorry for taking up so much of your time.
no, no, man, I'm good.
Tell everyone about Folded Ocean. Is there some place they can go support it or check it out? It's going to Sundance,
Yeah,
is it?
they're streaming it online as part of Sundance, so you can watch it online if you go to the Sundance website. I also just have a link to it, obviously, so I'm like tempted to just make the link public, but yeah, for now, out of respect for the good people at Sundance who selected the film, I'd say if you want to see it, I think you can. If it costs money to stream it, then people can just find my contact info, and I'll just send it to you for free. But if it doesn't, if it's affordable, you can stream it on Sundance during the festival. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Dude, Ben, it's been such a pleasure chatting. Before I let you go, my last question: what advice would you have for anyone looking to become a filmmaker? I mean, I asked this question to James Gray, and it reminds me of a point I wanted to bring up. I mean, this is my favorite response I've ever gotten to this. James Gray, who I don't know if you know, he directed Ad Astra, the new Armageddon time.
Oh yeah, I'm
Uh,
a huge James Gray fan. Yeah.
He's so nice, and he's just the funniest dude ever. And he has this great New York accent. I love chatting with me, and just the way he talks about film, he literally paints a picture. But he was telling me this story of how he went to this big ballroom party once, and in the corner he saw Sidney Pollack. And I know we talked a lot about cigars, but Sidney Pollack was smoking a cigar in this scenario. So you have to let me do the impression. He was smoking a cigar, and James Gray went up to him and was like, what advice would you have for anyone looking to become a filmmaker? Like the question I just asked you. And Sidney Pollack kind of took a puff and said, you gotta do. You have to do. And he went back to smoking his cigar. And James Gray goes, well, at the time, I thought that was the dumbest advice I've ever heard in my life. But now, the more that I'm a filmmaker, I realize that that's probably one of the greatest things I've ever been told. So that's just a long-winded way of saying. So what advice would you have for anyone looking to become a filmmaker?
I mean, it's similar, I think, well, I'm gonna give very weirdly specific advice.
No
And it's
cigarettes.
no, yeah, don't smoke because you'll desire a break too much. Um, use a don't buy a Mac, buy a PC. That's the weirdest, but I will say, bang for your buck, a PC is a much more powerful machine. I switched to be on PC. So if you're doing your own editing, if you're doing your own visual effects, you're doing your own color, you got, if you spend the same amount of money you'd spend on a Mac on a PC, you're gonna have a much more powerful computer. So that's a weird suggest. I'm very specific. Second, consider buying your own camera. I own a Sony FX6. I'm obsessed with it. If that camera had existed when I was in film school, I would have dropped out. It shoots a beautiful image. It's everything you need in one little beautiful package. And then, yeah, just don't let anybody stop you. The film industry is strange because it encourages certain kinds of habits that are really outdated, like writing a script and trying to go get it made. Like
Yeah.
there are plenty of people, especially in Hollywood, who are happy to waste your time taking meetings because that's what their job is, to take meetings and to talk to people. And so, but really, if you want to get people to take you seriously, you just have to throw the party yourself, right?
Yeah.
There's this, and the unfortunate aspect, I think, of filmmaking is just how class oriented it is, because frankly it's so expensive. And so if you want to just do it on your own, it's very hard. Like, how do you find the time? How do you do it without, how do you are you working a full-time job in addition? So I think that Hollywood is kind of really kind of set up for very wealthy people to do what they want to do, and it's not
Yeah.
as easy for people who come from normal backgrounds. That said, I think that, take whatever resources you have and just invest them in stuff that will allow you to just make films on your own completely. And then don't worry, because if you throw the party, people will come. And you can think, oh, I'm not throwing a fancy enough party, but you'd be surprised. Like, you can, even just like this short film, even before
Yeah.
it was in Sundance, just having shot a short film on my own, it like completely changed. Like people would, they just, in Hollywood, people just kind of get alert to, like, oh, someone's doing something, because the place is based on nobody ever doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you turned a light on and all of a sudden these like moths are trying to, like, be like, oh, what's up, you're making something. So that's my advice to filmmakers. It's just, it is the same as Sidney Pollack, like, just do it.
Dude,
um
amazing. That's some fantastic advice. Ben, before I let you go, are you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere people can go follow you?
I'm on Instagram, Brewer Films, I think it's Instagram. I don't have anything else besides that.
Dude,
um
amazing. Any new projects you can promote or talk about? Sand and Stones, I know you guys just finished production, so I doubt there's a release date or anything like that attached to it, no?
Allegedly, I think it will come out in 2024. um I think it has to all be done by September. So I don't know what the release schedule is. I know what my schedule is which is I have to finish it by September. But yeah, that should be a
So
fun
what
one.
better way to spend a day when you should be editing, chatting with me? So there you go. This is the
Dude,
big leagues.
truly.
Ben,
Um, this is I mean, I'm like so happy that you asked me to do this. I'm completely, uh, there aren't words to express how, surprised. I mean, when you talking about the people you've been interviewing, I mean, it's insane. Like, you're literally like, your YouTube channel is gonna look bizarre. It's like these, like, legendary auteurs and then this random dude and then all, so but I'm very happy that you
Oh,
reached
dude, get
out.
out here. It's actually been such a pleasure chatting. Like just to say, I'm so grateful you take the time to come on. I'll talk to you a little bit off air, but sure, you've been so kind. And hopefully one day you'll come back to Ireland and shoot that film and we'll get it going. And then finally we
Yeah,
can meet
hell
in
yeah.
person. And then,
Let's
but
do it.
there'll be no cigars, no cigarettes, because I've learned a lot in the span of this interview. You said me like, dude, I'll talk to you a little bit off air, but everyone, thank you guys so much for watching. Go check out all of Ben's work. He absolutely deserves it. Go watch The Trust if you haven't. Amazing film. But yeah, his newest short film, we talked about that, A Folded Ocean. Keep an eye on that for Sundance. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you have means, please make sure to donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. Link for that in the description. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Bye.